The Chicago Bulls officially tip off their NBA season tonight when they take on the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans. We'll talk a little bit about that game. Plus, we're going to talk about Billy Donovan's recent comments around how he plans on managing the Bulls' rotation. But on top of that, the quietness before the storm right now for the Chicago Bulls. We'll talk about what that noise could be coming. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. I want to start off talking about Billy Donovan. Now, you guys know, I'm not the biggest Billy Donovan fan. I look at the job that he's done here around the Chicago Bulls, and I say, I understand that he's done some things well with what he was given, right? But overall, I look at Billy Donovan's time here coaching as, it's always what could have been. Like the shortcomings in some areas, not balancing rotations, the heavy reliance on DeMar DeRozan that, may have came at the behest of growth and development for some players. But Billy Donovan is one thing that I've always given Billy Donovan credit for. He's usually very transparent. It's probably the most transparent part of this Chicago Bulls team. Like as far as injuries, he's always been very honest and open when it comes to injuries, especially with Lonzo or anybody else, and those type of things. Now, while his things that he says he wants to see the team do on the court hasn't always come into fruition, which we gotta still make sure that's going to happen this season, Billy Donovan has been really committed to this team changing their play style this year, saying this: as fast as we're trying to play, we're going to need to probably have a rotation of about 10. At times, I had a rotation 9 generally, but for us, I think we're going to have to go 10. He also said that he wants to avoid 10-minute stints because he wants his guys to play fast. And Billy Donovan being committed to this new play style is the only way that the Bulls are going to stick to it, right? The Bulls naturally have isolation players on their teams, things like that. And for Billy Donovan, first has to be committed to instilling this new play style. And I think what he's done so far, when you look at it through preseason, starting off in preseason, having a 14-second shot clock, right? You look at the Bulls having the quickest pace of any offense in the preseason, while don't expect them to have the quickest pace for the entirety of the season. We'll see, right? It is a sign of things in the right direction. And the first thing you have to do when you want to change a play style of a team or get players to buy in is you have to set the expectations of this is how we must play. And if you don't play this way, you could find yourself out of the rotation. Now, that last part of players finding themselves out of the rotation, that's not going to come yet, right? We need to see that if anybody's not playing up to the standards of the level that we need them to, is Billy Donovan going to not be as reluctant to sit some players, right? Patrick Williams has probably been the one player that has gotten set the most consistently over Billy Donovan's 4 years here with the Chicago Bulls, just because of, you look at the up and down nature of his play between injuries, things like that. But Billy Donovan tried to bench Zach LaVine once, and reportedly there was still some tension in regards to that up until last season. Right now, hopefully, it seems like that has smoothed itself out. Zach and Billy's relationship seems like at least right now, it's where it needs to be. But Billy Donovan and this coaching staff being committed to this new play style is the only way it's going to work. Now, I had a video yesterday and talking about how a 10-man rotation and also no player playing 10-minute stints keeps that team fresh. It is what could very well make this more high-powered offense, right, this quicker-paced offense work. And also, with that said, if you're keeping players from getting fatigued by making sure that you're managing their minutes in that way, there's no excuse for you not to move the ball or move without the ball in the half court. This needs to be a team that's always moving. That's the way that this offense can take advantage of teams and avoid defenses setting in on this offense and avoid the Bulls to have to run a more traditional half-set offense. Now, I want to be clear here. There's still going to be half-court offense needed, and that's where Vooch could come in at. That's where isolation will be needed, but again, not a heavy isolation system, but more of a system that uses isolation when needed, right? So there's always going to be that balance of things that the Bulls have to strike out, and it's really up to the coaching staff. And, what I said in that video yesterday, as far as if this change really does stick, right, and especially because Billy Donovan, it's been the same voice, same coaching staff for a while, we also got to look at Wes Unseld Jr., right? We also have to look at Dan Craig. We have to look at these John Bryant, who moved up in his role as well with the departure of Chris Fleming and Mo Cheeks, right? Like, we have to look and say that is Billy Donovan, or at least ask the question, is Billy Donovan more now trusting of the coaches and giving them a larger voice in what we're game planning? Because I tell you what, it's very rare that a coach like Billy Donovan, who's primarily been the same for 4 years, changes everything in of itself. Like, a new perspective generally helps with that. And so on the eve, no, it's not the eve anymore, the day of the Chicago Bulls officially tipping off their season, it's really good to hear things like this from Billy Donovan, right? And also Lonzo, right? Billy Donovan having a clear set goal when it comes to Lonzo, setting the expectation of this. Giddey and Ball are similar in the fact that they're both pass-first guys. That's their game, passing. Lonzo does it in a little bit of a different way than Josh does it. One thing that they do is both guys impact the group with their passing. So do you want to have Josh off when Lonzo's out there? Do you want to make sure you have really great floor runners with Lonzo because of his elite skills? It's the ability to advance the ball up the floor and generate advantage situations for yourself. So Billy Donovan basically saying in that Lonzo Ball is going to play when Josh Giddey sits. And when you look at Lonzo Ball and his minutes restriction, that makes perfect sense, right? Lonzo, who Billy Donovan said is going to be about a 14 to 16 minute restriction in this first game. Also already saying that Lonzo Ball is either he's not going to play one of the back-to-backs Friday and Saturday, or maybe both of them. But he doesn't sit both of them. Plus Saturday's the home opener. Let's get Lonzo Ball out there on Saturday. But Billy Donovan having a vision for this team. And I'll say this. I've said it before. You guys have been here. If you guys have been consistent, we have a lot of new subscribers to the channel recently, so you may not have been there when I was going on my rants last year. But a lot of time over the last few years, it's really seemed like the Bulls system was really hope. As far as, hey, let's go out there and hope Kobe's going to create something last season. That hope that Zach and DeMar is going to create something the seasons before that, right? And that they're going to do something. And it didn't really seem like there was a real big methodology to how the Chicago Bulls operated, right? And so now I'm not saying that we've seen that yet, right? We got to get into it, and that's the part of it where Billy Donovan talks really well, and he says really good things. And I'm not even going to deny that Billy Donovan has some really good ideas. It's about the execution of those ideas. And the Bulls, who are going to be a bad defensive team this year, make no mistake about it, we allowed 123 points in the preseason while scoring 121, right? So the Bulls are going to be in a lot of close games. And, while I do think there are going to be some games where, defensively we have to make a stop, we're going to have to get somebody to step up, whether it's Ayo or P. Will or whoever it is, to make some really big moves defensively, right? But for the most part, this is going to be a team that is focused on the offensive advantages that their system is trying to create. Focus on just how much can they take advantage with their quickness, with their conditioning. Billy Donovan did say in preseason, one of the first things we heard in training camp from the clip that was released, right, I think was an all access, and Billy Donovan saying, we need to be the best conditioned team in the league. And with the offense that the Bulls are trying to run, they do need to be that. Their conditioning needs to be sound. And having point guards out there like Josh Giddey and Lonzo Ball, one of those guys out there at every minute, right, that are able to do the things that they're able to do with creation. Now, Lonzo, he adds the three-point shooting that Josh Giddey lacks. Josh Giddey, it is what it is when it comes down to that. He's taking three-pointers. Hopefully, we start seeing improvement from that. He's improved every year, percentage-wise, three-point shooting. So hopefully that continues for him this year. But there's a level of excitement right now around the Chicago Bulls, one that I didn't really expect, before training camp opened. But I think when you look at the things around it, and we'll talk about this a little bit next up, that there is that excitement, but also it seems like the players are bought in. And that's another thing with this, right? Between Lonzo coming back to this locker room, the locker room really seeming like they love Lonzo Ball and they play hard for him out there. But on top of that, like, this just seems like a team that, as of right now, again, at the start of the season, everybody's 0-0, right? That this is just a team that is playing free right now. And that's what the Bulls are going to have to do, right? Yes, you need to be sound offensively. You need to have your pecking order. You need to have your players that step up hugely for you. But this is a team that is going to get it done. And one other thing that Billy Donovan has done so far schematically with this team is that when you look at it through preseason, the offense was spread out really well. Everybody was getting their shots. And it's going to take Zach LaVine and Kobe White to really be efficient with their scoring so that everybody else can stay involved in the game. Because if you have to take 15, 16 shots for Kobe and Zach LaVine to really get engaged in the offense or be effective in the offense, that's going to limit shots for everyone else. And when you're running a more up-tempo system, where you're spreading that ball out, everybody needs to touch the ball, right? Everybody needs to get some shots. I'm not saying everybody needs to get 10, 11 shots, but it seems like with what we saw, the sample size that we saw in preseason, this is a team that all the starters are going to get between 9 and like 13, 14 shots. I think that's a really good place to be in. Now you need to hit those shots efficiently. You need to also have your bench players when they come in to be efficient. But right now, seems like I got to give Billy Donovan credit. This may be the season where Billy Donovan gets in his coaching bag the most and discovers his coaching bag here with the Bulls, right? And so we'll see how that develops as well. One thing Billy Donovan also talked about as we get into our next topic is some of the noise surrounding or the fact that there is no noise surrounding the Chicago Bulls, but that it could start up, right? Saying this. Probably the overriding thing is everybody is opening up their regular season and is excited to play. There's always optimism. The noise is something where you go through losing, you go through difficulties. That's where you really got to find the resiliency of being able to deal with adversity and being able to come in and be professional, go to work and do your job at the highest level. You're starting to get 25, 30 games into it. It's a grind. It's tough. That's where you really got to find meaning in what you're doing. So while right now it could be the quiet before the storm, could be the quiet before the success, whatever it is for the Bulls, you want to look at what are some of the things that could be coming down the pipeline for the team over this season that could cause some of those distractions. What could be some of that adversity? What could be some of those things that this Bulls team is facing this year? And first up, the trade rumors. Trade rumors for Zach LaVine first, right? While they've quieted down, and Zach LaVine did a great job addressing that in his opening statement in media day, basically the first thing him saying, listen, if it didn't come out my mouth, stop it. There's been a lot of talk around me, but not a lot of talk from me. And so basically, shut the fuck up, right? Like, I'm sorry. I'm starting off the season cussing. Basically, shut the fuck up, right? It's basically what he said about it. But we're already starting to see the rumors pick back up. The Michael Porter Jr. Trade rumors, the Brandon Ingram ones a week or so ago, right? And that's just a byproduct of Zach LaVine playing better. And when I say that this is noise, it's not because of anything negative around Zach, but considering what last offseason was and last season was, if Zach LaVine comes into this season and he plays well, he's locked in, he's giving the effort defensively, he's fitting in with this team that is fitting into this system more so than him getting off a bunch of shots, but he's playing efficiently. The Zach LaVine trade rumors will pick back up. And how the team deals with that, with Nikola Vucevic saying last year that some of the trade things did get to the team at times, which I know that got a lot of kind of criticism from Bulls fans at the time. And I won't say that I don't understand it. It happened. It is what it is. And it is, right? But those Zach LaVine trade rumors, is that noise could start picking back up towards the trade deadline, especially. And the funny thing about this is that it will get louder if the Bulls and Zach LaVine play better, right? That's the thing. And so it's not even one of those things where winning can necessarily cure that. If Zach LaVine is playing well and the Chicago Bulls are winning because of and again, I'm talking about external noise. I'm not talking about internally from the Chicago Bulls. I'm not even necessarily talking about Bulls fans. But you know those writers, you know those blog reporters, you know those ESPN analysts, you know those Fox Sports analysts, you know these outlets that the moment that things start looking solid for Zach LaVine or looking up, it's going to say, hey, but didn't Zach not want to be there? Has Zach now proven to the teams like the Lakers, the Clippers, whoever else, that he's committed to winning, that he can contribute to winning? Oh, will those teams get back in? Orlando Magic, whoever else, all the Sacramento Kings, which was a rumor a couple of weeks ago, right, or a week ago, with them opening up space to make a big deal. That's one of the pieces of adversity that could come from this Bulls team. But I'll look at it this way. The Bulls dealt with that last year, and that was without even Zach LaVine being on the court. Lock in, focus. It is what it is. At the end of the day, Zach really doesn't control it much either. If the Bulls decide to move on from Zach LaVine, they decide to move on from Zach LaVine. This isn't a conversation about should they or should they not. Maybe we'll have that as the season goes on, but that conversation is going to pick back up. And much so with Vooch. And when you look at Vooch, it's kind of more glaring, right? And I don't want to even talk about Vooch necessarily in trade rumors. I want to more so talk about Vooch and his fit, right? That's a sticking point of adversity that could come along for this team. When you look at Nikola Vucevic, right? Over Nikola Vucevic's time, he was 48.4% from the field last season, which was lower than the 52% that he shot the year before. And then when you look at it also, he had a 63% scoring rate at the rim, which was in the 25th percentile It's the lowest that it's been since the 2016-17 season. There's no way to deny that Nikola Vucevic is starting into a decline of his career. Now, he's still a very impactful player. Nikola Vucevic's averages have basically been the same every single year that he's been a Chicago Bull, but the efficiency has dropped every single year. But he's still putting up the same numbers, right? And he's doing that. But when you look at us moving to a system that doesn't necessarily fit his game the best, right? Or at all, depending on who you talk to, Vooch is going to have to really adapt to what the Chicago Bulls are trying to do this year. And the fit and his future here is in question because, listen, while Jalen Smith is not that better defensively than Nikola Vucevic, go and look at the analytics. Now, he does things like block shots a little bit more, right? He does get some more steals. He does those type of things. But when you're talking about on-ball defense, Jalen Smith really isn't that much better than Nikola Vucevic. But the fit is better, especially offensively, running up and down the court with being a lob threat, right? Those are things. And then even when you're looking at Nikola Vucevic's three-point shot, right? He shot 40% on 6 attempts per game when he came to Chicago. And now he's shooting 29.4% on 4.1 attempts. And listen, he is getting considerably worse. Also, when you look at the fact that the Bulls were just a worse team when Vooch was on the court last season. We were negative 3.6 per 100 possessions when Vooch was on the floor last year. And that was us still running a more half-court isolation system that fit Vooch's game better. Now, there are still some fit concerns there with DeMar DeRozan and Vooch starting their offense basically in the same spots. There was that aspect of things. But again, maybe with the floor being more open when we do go to the half court, Vooch can rediscover some of his efficiency. But there's just that concern there with Vooch's fit and his future with this team. And that's another thing that as the season goes on, especially the Bulls face some adversity, as Billy Donovan said, 25, 35 games into this, and you're looking at Nikola Vucevic and you're saying Vooch is just not fitting what we're trying to do, right? Not to say that the Bulls' overall success or failure just depends on Vooch, but Vooch could be a linchpin in what the Bulls are trying to do schematically. So that's another thing to look out for. And then also Josh Giddey's contract. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We know what it is. Josh Giddey reportedly wanted $30 million. Him and the Bulls didn't reach a contract extension. There's actually an article, I think it was over on Bleacher Report, that predicted Josh Giddey's next deal, and they predicted it at 4 years, $112 million, which is a solid deal. That's $28 million per year, if my math is correct. So that'll get him close to what he wants, and then maybe they can work it in some incentives. But it comes down to Josh Giddey's performance. And if Josh Giddey, with him being an acquisition, one of the key acquisitions for the Bulls this offseason, if he has a bad year, that is definitely going to be some noise around the Chicago Bulls and some adversity that they have to face. And also Josh Giddey focusing. Josh Giddey's already opened up and talked about, like, for example, his birthday post and some of the comments getting to him. Some of just the comments online in general and him trying to disengage from being online. Like, he's a young guy, and he admitted it's getting to him. And I know some people aren't going to agree with that. Are going to say Giddey needs to tough it up. But, like, if Josh Giddey's performance also is lacking in a lot of ways, right, or he has a down month, or his season starts off slow, the noise is going to get very loud around what Josh Giddey is or is not bringing to this Bulls team. And so that's another thing that could be a sign of adversity for this team. Again, I'm not saying that I think that. I'm not saying that I don't think that Josh Giddey is going to have a really good season. I actually do. I think that Josh Giddey has less expectations than in OKC, and he's in a place where he gets to do exactly what his strengths are, right? In OKC, he got to play to his strengths in the 2022-23 season for a brief period of that. But then very quickly after that, especially all of last season, he had to fit in and try to adapt to what the OKC Thunder needed him to do rather than just play to just his strengths. He's having a chance now to be able to do that with the Chicago Bulls, just playing to his strengths. And so we'll see how that comes along for him as well, right? And then Kobe and Ayo. Can Kobe and Ayo do it again, right? And let's say, let's look at Kobe White, for example. Kobe White had a career-high 5.1 assists. And his ball handling, his reading of defenses all improved very well, in which he was able to get his teammates more involved in this game. Again, but he was playing on ball. Also, he turned into a good rebounding guard. I think that's going to maintain for him. We even seen that in preseason. Kobe White finished last season with a differential of plus 4.6 when he was on the court last season. And you look at it, his effective field goal percentage went up 4%. Also, when Kobe White was on the floor, the Bulls, he ranked in the 96th percentile as far as your team's performance, right? When you're on the court, how you impact the plus or minus. So Kobe White had a really good season last year. And he's had a really good preseason so far as well, despite, him sitting some games. But there's going to be that, of course, that question, can he do it again? And the consistency of Kobe White, right? The consistency of Kobe White is something that he's talked about that he wants to work on. We need to see a more consistent Kobe White, meaning that we cannot have the 3-4 game stretches that Kobe just can't hit a shot, right? Now, there's going to be games that every player goes through a couple of games where they play bad. Like, it's going to happen at least once throughout the season. But the point is, you want to get that less and lesson than what we did than what he's done in prior years, right? And same with Ayo. Ayo now moving to the bench, still probably going to play starter level minutes, right? There's going to be that, and I've talked about it. Ayo can be the glue guy for the Chicago. He can be the biggest X factor for the Chicago Bulls this season. And there's going to be that as well. Can he face, what type of adversity do we face there? That's another thing. But overall, I'm not too worried about the noise surrounding the Bulls. If they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they're bad, and we'll be covering it every day here. Now, there is a game today, game day for the Chicago Bulls, going down today against the Pelicans. And just a simple, first game of the season, what are some things that I'm looking for in this game? First, the Bulls offense. Everything in the training camp postseason, everything has built around bringing balance and flow to the Chicago Bulls team offensively. I'm looking for that tonight against the Pelicans. Does the Bulls offense look dynamic like we think it can? And does it look even better maybe than we saw in preseason, as the Bulls have a clean bill of health, clean health sheet there, right? So that's a really good thing. But the Bulls offensive flow is the first thing that I'm looking for, because that's the story of the Bulls season this year, right? Is how good this offense can be. How well do we move? All these type of things. Does the product that we see on the court matches the words that Billy Donovan said about how he wants this Bulls team to play? That's one of the biggest stories as well. Then also the Bulls defense, right? Not as big of a story, not as big of a focus, I don't think either. But the Pelicans, even despite their center situation, which they have a worse center situation than the Chicago Bulls. I never thought I would see that, right? But they're still a physical team, and they're going to be a physical matchup for the Chicago Bulls. This is a team that gets physical between Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, DeJounte Murray now being there. You also got Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, like all these players being there. This is going to be a physical matchup for the Bulls. And I want to see how well the Bulls defense plays into their offense, right? Can the Bulls play good enough defensively to where you can maximize that offense for the Chicago Bulls? And then lastly, the last thing I'm looking for in the Bulls' first game today is the rotation. Not only the 10-man rotation, but how the team and the coaching staff balances using youth with your vets, right? Matching the skill sets of players. What different types of looks are we trying to get out there per the personnel that we're using in certain matchups? Balancing the offense, defense, those type of things. That's a really big thing for me. So to recap, Bulls offense is the first and foremost thing that I'm looking at, because everything's been built around getting this offense more modern, getting an offensive system, getting an identity offensively. So that's what I'm looking for. How much does the Bulls defense hurt what they're trying to do, right? Or how well can the Bulls defense help what they're trying to do? That's another thing I'm looking for in this. And then also the rotation. The 10-man rotation, something we haven't seen from Billy Donovan consistently in this tenure here. Going to that, who's in that 10-man rotation? As Miles Busilis has already said, he doesn't know if he's going to play, but he's going to be ready if his number's called on, right? Looking to see all these things for this Bulls team is really important in this first game, and to see how well, of course, individual things, of course, Kobe, Ayo, Patrick Williams, how well does he look after having some flashes in preseason, right? Those type of things. Miles Busilis, Julian Phillips, who had a really good preseason, THT, right? So there's definitely individual player things that I'm looking for, but the first thing I'm looking for is these team things. I think the individual things will work themselves out. We got to get our identity both offensively, defensively, rotation-wise. We got to see what this team is going to be. This is a good first test coming out the gate for the Chicago Bulls, and we'll be covering it here. Live post-game show, live halftime show, live pregame show. We're going to be live all up and down the channel today, so make sure you guys stay in tune with us. Make sure you're following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up. But no, that's not right. That's the Bears intro. Go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.